Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic. It's a Sunday, it's time for a comic book review video. If you've been subscribed to me for at least the last week, then you will hopefully have already seen my pull list from Wednesday that I picked up. Now it's time to tell you what I thought about those books. And this week was a tough week. There was stuff on my list because as loyal subscribers you will know that I kind of put these books in ascending order of how much I enjoyed them, and I enjoyed all my books this week. They were good, and it's points like this that it's difficult to kind of put them in some sort of ascending order, and there's stuff near the bottom that I feel are there unjustly. It was just one of those weeks that satisfaction was kind of like the big thing, and there were books that didn't quite hit the mark for one reason or another, which obviously I'm going to be discussing very soon. And there were some books that was like, oh, how dare I put them so low? We're going to kick off with the first book, which is no detriment to this series being at the bottom because I still really enjoyed it. But it's Super Sons issue number 14. Now those of us that are picking up this book will no doubt be aware that it has been cancelled. I think this probably has maybe 2-3 more issues to go. And I feel as though with this particular storyline, The Parent Trap, things kind of got wrapped up very quickly, and I wonder whether this story was meant to go on just that little bit longer, but they kind of had to fit the last storyline in, so they cut this one because it all, like I said, it all gets wrapped up very, very quickly. In the last issue, we had the appearance of Damien's mother, Talia al Ghul. And she's kind of disappointed with her son Damien that he is just basically, for a lot of his life, living a very normal teenage existence. Going to school, making friends, and his mother is very down on this. She wants him to be, you know, the ultimate assassin. He should be out there training to get this kind of accolade, and she is very disappointed, and so decides, kind of in some respects, to test him. That test involves a hit out on Superboy's mother, Lois. And it's in this issue that Robin, Damien, faces off with his mother, while Superboy goes and saves his mother from the League of Assassins. And like I said, it just kind of rushed its way through. We had a little kind of silly battle with Superboy and the League of Assassins, the awkwardness that he's out doing superhero adventuring when his mum Lois thinks he should be at home, or believes he's at home, clearly not. And then there's the kind of Damien and his mother kind of smacking each other around, which is not great parenting if you ask me. But at the root of this book, it's always been about the friendship between John, Superboy, and Damien, Robin, and the awkwardness of these two, where, you know, Superboy is like super positive. He's always wants to see the bright side. He wants to be friends with everyone, where obviously Damien is the dark, cynical, negative, control freak that he is. Clearly, you know, he clearly is his father's son. But the two of them find a way to compromise, to live with each other's faults, and I just love it for that. It's a shame when I say that I've put this at the bottom. Are there other books on this list that deserve to be at the bottom? I don't know. It was a tough week. So the thing with Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda's Monstrous is that although it's absolutely beautiful to look at, the pages are just dripping with gorgeous art and detail. The story is so convoluted that it's incredibly difficult to keep up with who's kind of like the goodies, who are the baddies, who are you meant to be rooting for. It's like a storyline on par with kind of Game of Thrones, and it's difficult keeping up with this book. And you just have to kind of go with the flow of it. In the last issue, Micah, our like main protagonist, this young girl with a demon residing in her, broke down this kind of barrier seal that has been covering this kind of settlement where they are protected, and she's kind of, I guess, accidentally broken this seal. So now it's time for, you know, the people outside, the warring factions, to kind of descend on this kind of island and take over it for whatever reason. There is the whole kind of deal about these kind of anthropomorphic characters. They're called I can't remember what they're called now. That they've got a certain name for them, and they're kind of like, they're right at the very beginning of this book. You kind of had a lot of them kind of trapped in prison and caged to be executed because they are seen as not of the norm. But like I said, there's just so much going on in this book. It's one of those titles I think would be a fantastic read in trade, and getting a big kind of like bulk of the story all in one, and may read better. It doesn't help that, you know, as with so many other Image books, that they get these hiatuses going on, and we get these big breaks, especially with this book, and it's kind of unfair to treat it that way, because it's clearly the art that's holding this book up, because it is so gorgeous, it's so detailed. I'm sure Sana Takeda is just pouring her heart and soul into this issue, into this title. But my God, it takes a read and perhaps going back to the last issue to kind of catch up. But there is so much good stuff going on in it. We have this door that needs to be broken, this seal, so they can get whatever's behind it to get this dome, this protective dome, back up again. And of course it's up to Micah to go and open it. The demon inside of her kind of is the key to opening it, and perhaps letting loose all hell. Then you get these kind of side stories. We've got the little cat, Ren, who's like I think they call him a necromancer, and don't know whose side that cat is on. It seems to be kind of a double agent, befriending our kind of main group of characters, but also has this kind of shady missions from his kind of head ruling cat. I said so much inside this book, but it is gorgeous, and I don't know how long this book has got to go, whether this is all going to get wrapped up very soon, and this title is going to finish with a finite ending. And it'll be a shame, because it's that fantasy genre that I love and just lap up, but I kind of want it to end. Next up, we have Descender from Image Comics by Jeff Lemire, issue number 28. And it's the second part of this kind of interim storyline, two-parter, Old Worlds, where we kind of dip back into the past to see how all this kind of robots versus humans chaos kind of occurred. And we still visit Professor Ozrus, who has, in the last issue, he went off to another planet and found all these kind of, I guess, the robot planet. and brought their technology back to his home planet to hopefully, you know, make his world a better place, which for the most part he does. But man always wants to achieve more, and he makes this robot that he kind of reverse engineers to have sentience, to, you know, that kind of artificial intelligence to act and react of its own accord rather than, you know, be programmed. And so we see his kind of focused mission on achieving this, but obviously it all goes pear-shaped. There's a kind of there's almost a test there of can humans and robots live harmoniously with each other rather than creating these robots to be subservient, to be basically slaves. And of course the professor fails miserably, and the robots all kind of get sentience, and they destroy his whole home planet along with his father and his his wife and his son. And it's all very tragic. You kind of almost feel for the professor. It's one of those trying to do good, you know, for the betterment of all, but falling kind of at the last hurdle, and not seeing the bigger picture. So I really do enjoy this kind of like slip back to the past and how it is now affecting the future, our present day in this title. And it's still, you know, there's still Tim 21 who is at the root of all this and is going to help, I guess, bring a new age of kind of humans and robots living harmoniously together. There is something inside Tim 21 that perhaps will switch this this war between the two. But great stuff. The artwork for this, I don't know whether it's on purpose, but it felt less full. It was a little bit more sketchy. I don't know if you can see that properly because of the light, sorry. But it felt a little bit sketchy to me, not as painted as it normally does. More sketches with a little bit of colour thrown on. Maybe, like I said, this was to denote it's a different time. We're looking at stuff from the past. But I was kind of a little disappointed at Dustin's artwork this issue, because it's always been and I've always been a great fan of especially the art style that was chosen for this kind of sci-fi epic saga type deal, but Descender is always very much on the top of my list to read because I love it. So we've made it to the final issue of Department H by Matt and Charlene Kent, and I don't know what to think of this. And it is really only so high up in my list because I have as a whole enjoyed this series greatly. It's gone from being kind of this murder mystery type story to a survival adventure tale to a series. It's almost been like a historic blog with all these flashbacks of how these characters have all come together and their interactions and feelings about Harry, who was murdered right at the beginning of this book. And I feel like I've been a bad comic book reader because I don't actually feel as though we were told who actually killed Harry. I don't know whether I missed that or I just absent-mindedly forgot it, because this issue certainly doesn't reflect that in the slightest. We've got Mia, we've had her trying to get to the surface and bring this cure up that's going to save millions of people. And spoilers, course, I should have said this at the very beginning. She does make it to the surface, but she's basically in the middle of an ocean. There's no one coming to rescue her, and so she kind of, again with the flashbacks, we see her father almost training her in kind of in advance of any predicament she might fall into, like looking up at the stars, seeing the sun, the birds, where they're flying, and so she can judge which way to go, hopefully to find land, which she eventually does. And it feels like it's this deserted island. She makes a kind of encampment there. And there are all these thoughts in her mind. She's still got the cure, but there doesn't seem to be any real urgency for her to go and get that cure to the right people. In fact, we don't even see anything that has been going on up above since her time below, and now she's come to, save the human race, I guess. And it's just kind of almost left up in the air. Now, at the very beginning of this book, in the kind of foreword by Matt Kent, he explains, this is a goodbye, and it's sad and all, and he talks about the 35 or so issues that he wrote all by himself for Mind Management, and what that was almost an ordeal. And a tiring ordeal at that. So to have, Charlene, his wife, help out and have a letter on there made it slightly easier. But I feel that this has stopped at the wrong time. It's not ended as satisfying as I would have liked. I felt there was maybe another story arc to tell, but Matt clearly wants to stop now. He has stopped now, but has kind of left the readers in limbo to what is going to happen in this universe he has created, which is a shame. So in this issue, it was kind of like a very melancholic kind of tale of her looking back at her youth, and what her father had done for her. And brought her up, although for the most part he was a very absent father, but he had provided her with the tools to survive without him. It was a very bittersweet last issue for me, but still, if you've not read Department H, if this was a title that you didn't pick up, I would thoroughly recommend you pick this up in trade. I don't know if they're coming out in those nice little hardbacks like Mind Management did. I don't know if there's enough issues for him to do that, and they might just be out in paperback, but please go and support this book in trade. Give Matt Kint and Charlene Kint a few more pennies in their pocket, I guess, for writing such a great tale. Next, we've got David Lapham's Stray Bullets, up to issue 33, and focusing on one of my favourite characters. He's so dark and twisted. It's Kretschmer, and it's dark, it really is. He finally ditches Annie and his brother out in the sticks. He's just fed up of kind of dragging them around, and goes back, I guess, to his hometown in the idea to kill Spanish Scott. Now, all this while, he's got this wrist, his arm, it's broken, it's not getting fixed, it's getting worse, and he's trying to work around it so he can still use like a sniper rifle, but it just isn't working. No matter how kind of ingenious he gets, he just can't manage to focus. He can't manage to, get the gun to do exactly what he wants to do. So there's some trepidation, despite the fact that he has ample opportunities to shoot and kill Scott. But it's just the dark nature of Kretschmer that he just puts chills up and down your spine. It really does. And the lengths he will go to, and the risks. It's almost like he has this death wish to get his plans in motion. And I don't know what is going on in David's head, but it is incredibly messed up. But I am loving this. It's funny, but it shouldn't be. You know, it has that humour to it, but it's that terribly dark humour that can really only come from David Lapham's mind. I love that he's kind of brought in poor Chan Chan, the stripper from the strip club that Beth and Orson tried to achieved getting all that coke and all the money from. She's already had to deal with Orson coming back home after being ditched by Beth. Now she has to deal with Kretschmeyer. That poor woman's nerves must be in threads. It really must. I feel very sorry for her. But just an awesome story. Again, another book. Why are you not reading Stray Bullets if you're not already? Because it's a fantastic ride. It may go off in all sorts of crazy directions, but I assure you, they always come back together and everything has a reason for being there. Now it's the penultimate book of the week. What missed out on being the pick? This has been such a great series, and I feel sorry for everyone who decided they didn't want to jump on board of this because they thought, oh, too many tie-ins, too many of the books that you have to collect, when you actually don't. It's issue 3 of the main event from Doctor Strange, Damnation, written by Nick Spencer and Donny Cates with artwork by Simon Kodransky. And it's such a good, exciting, fun book. I am so on board with this. There are elements I don't quite understand. Is there connections? But I am happy to go with the flow because it's fun. I'm not a huge fan of Kodransky's artwork at times. I feel it's a little bit too rough in places, but I feel given that these are kind of like the C-listed characters in Marvel, you know, all your kind of dark kind of magic type characters that don't really get a lot of airtime, should we say, in the Marvel universe, that perhaps the style kind of goes with that. But the story wise, it's all coming together. You know, you can't just read Damnation on its own. I think all you really need is to read Doctor Strange with it. I don't think there's going to be that much going on outside with Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider. I think there was, what other book was involved with this? Iron Fist. And there's meant to be a Johnny Blaze. I don't know if it's a one-shot or a mini-series that goes with this, but I haven't lost a beat on this book just reading this main event and Doctor Strange. It's fantastic. Well, in this issue we have them going up against Doctor Strange, who has been taken over by the kind of the Ghost Rider deal, and it's the cure almost comes from a very unlikely source, and that is the poor ghost dog bats. The soul, I guess, of Doctor Strange has been taken by Mephisto, taken over by the Ghost Rider essence. So there is a space, a gap in there. So who fills that gap? But Bats the dog, he kind of inhabits Doctor Strange's body and kind of puts him on hold, so to speak. And it's up to Bats to try and kind of have this inner battle with everything that's going on in Doctor Strange's mind and body, and just to keep that back to assist all the rest of our kind of Marvel heroes to get to Mephisto. Now, the one bit that I'm not quite sure what's going on, if there is some sort of connection between these two characters, is Mephisto and Ghost Rider. At the beginning of this, we get a kind of an aside with Wong and Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze. where he has this kind of secret mission, or Johnny Blaze is going to be kind of like the key to bringing down Mephisto, and he comes into it right at the very end, charging through the Avengers, who themselves again have been taken over by the kind of Ghost Rider essence. He smashes his way through those to confront Mephisto, but Mephisto, with the kind of click of his fingers, removes the Ghost Rider from Johnny Blaze, and this kind of spirit of is it vengeance. And he just becomes human again, and of course Mephisto just kicks him out of his big tower, and he kind of falls to the ground, perhaps dead, perhaps not, given he's got a little mini-series about to start, but I don't know if there's any connection there. Was it Mephisto that gave Ghost Rider these powers to begin with? I'm not very up with the Ghost Rider mythology. If anyone does know, please let me know in the comments section. But thrilling ride all the way. I love this. It's a 5-issue miniseries if I remember rightly, so there's only a couple more issues of this left. As I said with Doctor Strange that came out last week, I like the way these two books kind of fit together, where the kind of Doctor Strange story kind of happens almost just before this, despite the fact that it comes after in solicitations. And although people will think that's a bit of a strange thing, I think it works. At least it works for me. So, of course, my pick of the week, once again, has to be Kill or Be Killed by Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips and Elizabeth Brightweiss. So this is issue number 17, and as we're all largely aware now from anyone who's been reading this book or should know, it's coming to an end. This is not the ongoing series that Brubaker had first envisaged. I don't know why. I've not really read that far into it. Just the fact that this book is ending is quite sad. And although a lot of us were kind of thinking, well, how does this become an ongoing? And we thought this quite a way back. This book has just got better and better and more twisted and turns than you can shake a stick at. And I don't know, this issue was, in places, it was chilling. We have Dylan still in the mental institution, but he was originally, taking all these drugs and was completely out of it, did not know what was happening, but now he's kind of checking out with the drugs. He's hiding them, he's not taking them, so he can be more lucid. And one of the things he really is focused on now is the orderly Perry, who is one of those bad orderlies who plays around with the inmates and basically rapes the female inmates there. Pretty much a bad guy, and is due a beating, which Dylan is more than happy to give. But it's kind of like he sets up all these plans, and for whatever reason they don't go quite the way he wants them to. Being in the mental institution, he is very constrained, despite the fact that everyone thinks he's kind of all loopy on drugs, and kind of almost gets free reign of the hospital. He can just walk wherever he wants, and people just think, oh, he's out of his mind on the drugs, he's not going to do any harm, when in fact what he's doing is stalking Perry, trying to find out his movements and make the ideal setting for his murder. And as always, Sean Phillips and Elizabeth Brightweiss bring out their A game with this book, even down to these fantastic kind of snow scenes. I mean, it is just beautiful to look at, and there's a sense of almost realism to the book that you don't often get with the comic books. Like I said, they've really upped their game on this book. The other bit that surprised me, and I don't know if I read this or heard this, but it's a point that really just kind of flew me by and I didn't even think of it for a second. Whether it's true or not, we'll find out in the following issues. But there's this whole thing about Mason, his friend, ex-friend, finding the mask, all the vigilante stuff back in his apartment, and has, as far as Dylan thinks, ratted him out to the police. But one thing that didn't occur to me, because while he's in the mental institution, there is still killings going on under the guise of the vigilante that Dylan has created. So, you know, you've had that whole, is Dylan the real vigilante? Has he just been hallucinating all this while being in the mental institution? But it then occurred to me, once someone had heard this come out, was, has Mason actually kind of taken on that mantle? Is he going on with the work that Dylan already has done? It's an interesting twist that, you know, could come out of Ed Brubaker's mind. You do find in this issue from a newspaper story that the masked vigilante is killed. So that's going to be a twist and a turn to find out who's under that mask. And I can't wait. I just can't wait. This book is fantastic. Again, above all the books that I recommended on my pull list, this is definitely the one that you need to be reading. It is a fantastic thriller, kind of psychological look at the mind of a killer, really, and it's just so beautifully portrayed on each and every page. These three do not skip a beat. And that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you no doubt very soon with a new set of books. This Friday, well, basically this coming weekend is our Easter bank holiday, so we get Friday and Monday off. So although you will have Wednesday, New Comic Book Day, I have in the process of making the monthly kind of pop culture video that I do now. I don't know whether next week I will have comic book reviews up. If I do, they will definitely be a day late, so it'll probably come out on Monday. But I hope you'll stick around for them nonetheless. Thank you to everyone who's been subscribing, continues to watch my videos, gives it a big thumbs up, comments, says absolutely lovely things. Just keep them coming. I appreciate every single one of you. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye bye.